Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to my first mini podcast. I don't really have a name or anything for it or a schedule, but we're going to focus on K State volleyball, K State women's basketball. We'll even talk about other sports. We can talk about soccer. We can talk about baseball if we wanted to, but mostly we're going to focus on the two K State women's basketball and K State volleyball. Let's start with a small introduction. My name's Ethan. I was born and raised in a small little central Kansas town called Lindsborg. Lived there until I moved to Manhattan in late 2022. I've been a massive K State fan my whole life. I've had season tickets for football and men's basketball for about as long as I can remember. I also grew up playing basketball and volleyball. I was an avid volleyball fan, but couldn't play it, of course, at a later age, but I did manage the sport in high school. I also did stop playing basketball after middle school, but still love the game, still have a pretty good understanding of it. I currently live in Manhattan, where I help with coverage now of women's basketball and volleyball for GoPowercat on the 24/7 network. I live with my three dogs, Geo, Devin, and Reagan. So if you hear any random dog-like sounds, you're not crazy. It is one of those three. They're all three Bernese Mountain Dogs. They're all crazy, but I love them all the same. Let's just kind of jump straight in here. Let's start with just kind of talking about how the season's gone so far for the K-State women, what to expect, what's going on. I'm going to start by saying this team is special on many levels for many reasons, ranging from the fact there's youth talent, you have All American, you have a point guard who I think is maybe the best point guard in the country outside of being an all around player. She can do everything. She can score, rebound, assist, drive the ball, shoot the three. Uh, but what it comes down to this season, and I see a lot of people freaking out right now, is Ayoka Lee. Ayoka Lee is the key for this whole machine of K State women's basketball to work at the moment. What Ayoka brings to the floor is unmatched in any other team. You can say Caitlin Clark, you can say Juju at USC, but I think what Ayoka Lee does for K State is unmatched. Ayoka Lee averages 20 points, over 10 rebounds a game, but outside of that, she is just a dominant center. And with K State missing that the last few games, you kind of saw a lot of growing pains for the Wildcats. I think we learned a lot about what works, what doesn't work. K State, the one or the 2-3, or sorry, the 3-2 zone worked really well against Baylor. I thought it was one of the greatest coaching adjustments Mitty has had. It worked. It killed Baylor, forcing the corner threes that they do not like, and it won them the game. But then you look at games like the most recent one, the Texas game. He came straight out with the 3-2. It was almost like Texas kind of knew that was going to get thrown at him, but he kind of didn't want to go away from it, and it kind of cost K State because he adjusted too late. He finally went to man late in the third ish, early fourth quarter, and it worked really well. Even though Texas was way bigger size than anything K State could throw out there, but it worked because Texas wasn't prepared for it. And I think that was just something that Mitty's also trying to figure out is what's going to work without Lee. But the good news is we don't have much longer until we don't have Lee. Ayoka, I would guess, will be fully back for the home match on February 17th against UCF. We might see some limited minutes in their road game at Iowa State, especially with the talented freshman Iowa State has in Audie Crooks in the center. But I don't want, and I don't think Mitty will rush Ayoka back. That is not something you want to risk if you lose Lee for the rest of the season. That's going to be tough. I still think this team is capable of making like a Sweet 16 run without Lee in the right matchups. But with Lee, this team can play for a national championship, and I don't say that lightly. The defense is elite. Defense wins championships. You don't get to the record of 20-1 at one point just because of one player. Uh, K State has a plethora of players that can step up. It's just getting them all to work together, especially the young players. You have a lot of young players who are trying to figure out where they fit in the system, what their job is, how to play within the system. You see players like Terrence Sides, who's now her best game in conference play was against Texas. She played about, I think, 6 minutes, but she was good on defense. She's a good facilitator. She didn't force the ball anywhere. She got open, missed her three, but she got open a few times. She had a few good rebounds. It's just learning how to adjust to playing in a physical conference without her star center. If you go back and watch when Taryn was blowing up or late in the non-conference, it was because she was able to use Ayoka Lee as her get out of jail. If she was stuck, throw it into Ayoka. Ayoka's got me. She doesn't really have that right now, and I kind of see that affecting her, but she's learning to play like a true point guard, and that's good to see. The other young players I would love to talk about is Ziana Walker. Ziana Walker is a true baller. If you have not seen what she does for a full 40 minutes, even if she only plays 20 minutes, it is just, she is so confident and she can prove it. Her ball handling's elite. She's getting better as a jump shooter. She can get to the paint. She's very good on the driving. And she's only a freshman. You see why she was recruited by Louisville. Same with Amani. Ziana's roof is very high, or his roof. The ceiling for Ziana is very high. And if you love guard play, K-State is a very fun team to watch. The three starting guards, Serena and the Glenn twins, are fun, but the future of guard play at K-State is exciting. I think Ziana Walker can be an All-American. Terrence Sides is just one good game away, I think, from just completely blowing up. If she can get her shooting more consistent, Taryn will become an elite guard player as well. Don't sleep on players like Jamia Harris. We saw some flashes of her in the non-con. She's only a sophomore. No, she's a freshman. I'm sorry. Jamia, very athletic, slightly undersized, but very, very athletic. She can shoot the three well. Hard player. The guard play at K-State is going to be in good hands for a while. The big question then is post play. Everyone knows Ayoka is a senior this year, and we'll talk more about her later on and her eligibility and stuff. But the future, the post at K-State is a little bit more questionable, especially when you're trying to replace arguably one of the best centers to ever play the sport in Ayoka. You start with looking at players like Amani Lester. Amani is a elite athlete for a player her size. I mean, she can dunk, like easily can dunk a ball. So her size, we got to see it. She played her most minutes against Texas, and it wasn't close. Her, I think, season high before that was 11 minutes against McNeese State. She played 20 minutes against Texas, and she was effective. She was good in the post. She gave Taylor Jones problems, and Taylor Jones is an All-American center. That is a good center. And I thought Amani played great. I mean, she didn't score. I mean, she scored 1 point on a free throw, but she gave Taylor Jones 3 fouls. She was a good rebounder. She did a great job containing Jones. The one issue was with Amani is learning where to be when she's playing shot defense, which is a weird thing to say, but you kind of saw it because Taylor Jones was scoring putback after putback after putback after putback. It's because when Amani's defending, she defends the shot, but then forgets she has to turn and rebound, which is something they'll work on. And it helps that she gets to practice against Ayoka Lee. I mean, that's going to grow her immensely. Um, I really like Amani. I have been a huge fan of Amani all season. I think Amani can be an elite center player for K-State. It's just taking that next step. Once again, she is a freshman. You see why she was recruited by Louisville, just like Ziana. She's a good basketball player, and her athleticism is elite. Her size is good. It's just developing that jump shot, developing the rebounding, but it's all there. If Imani can take another step, mostly in the offseason this season, watch out. Okay, I'm telling you, she will be elite. I think Imani might have a higher ceiling than Ziana. I love Walker. Do not get me wrong. I love Ziana. But I really think Amani can be the next great center, not just at K-State, but in the Big 12. She has all the tools to be that. It's just getting her there. I'm going to kind of switch roles here really quick. Let's go just talk about the starters. Serena, the Glenn twins, Gabby. I could talk about Ayoka for hours if you guys wanted me to. But Gabby, I'm not going to talk a lot about because I do have questions about her. She is a part of this team, whether she struggles or not. She's a massive part of this team. She's the most experienced player on this team. She's not going to disappear. We've seen it. We know she can be an elite player, an elite scorer, but she does bring a lot to this team, whether she's scoring or not. Especially with Lee out, I think the last few games, people have kind of been like, where's Gabby? Because with Ayoka out, everyone in their scoring capability is going to get magnified by tenfold. If Gabby scored 6 points when Ayoka was around, okay. But if she scores 6 points in a game without Ayoka, it's like, hey, Gabby, we kind of need you to score. We'll talk more about her and stats and her season here in a little bit. Serena, I could gush. I love Serena, man. If she is my woman basketball crush, the way Serena Sundell plays basketball is how I would want any point guard to play college basketball. She sees the game at an elite level. She's an elite ball handler. How many point guards in not just the country this year, but ever averages over a block a game? She's great with her size. She can shoot, she can distribute, she can rebound. Last few games, she's been a little turnover prone, but that's a given when you're dealing with a massive loss in Ayoka Lee. But Serena is the key to this K-State team with or without Ayoka Lee. She's the facilitator. She is the do-it-all guard that's going to do everything that you need. She can score 20 points a game. She can go grab 10 rebounds a game, which I believe she did against not BYU, Oklahoma. She can get 10 assists, which she did against Oklahoma. No, she had 9 against Oklahoma, sorry. She can score 20 points a game consistently. And her defense is elite. She knows how to use her length. She's a bit longer guard. She's everything. If you ask me if I wanted Caitlin Clark or Serena Sundell running my point, it'd be a very tough decision, actually, because they're both very different guards. I'm going to pick Serena most of the time, unless I really need a scoring point guard. Serena, don't get me wrong, Caitlin Clark is an elite, one of the greatest players to ever play the sport. I know people like to hate on her, and she is a little, but you got to realize they're competitive players, and she's going to live. Caitlin lives in the moment, but what she has done, and she also, people like to skip over the fact that she is almost the nation leader in assists per game too. Caitlin Clark is an elite player, and I don't think people realize that. She is more than just a scorer. But what Serena Sundell does is incredible. And hey, guess what, K State? She's back next year, unless she transfers or something, but I don't think she will. She's back next year. And she very much could be an All American point guard next year. And then we're going to switch here to the Glenn twins. Let's start with. What do I want to start with? Let's start with the quiet one. Let's start with Jalen. Jalen was always her first 2 years. They're both juniors, just like Serena. Jalen has always kind of been the defensive one. She was the one the first 2 years that led the conference in steals. She could be a shutdown defender. But this year, she really has worked on her offense. Her offensive numbers are all up. She's been leading scorer in a few games. She had a perfect shooting night, I believe, against UCF on the road, which was massive for the Wildcats, which is a good sign that Jalen's taken this massive step because her defense is already elite. I mean, both of them are two of the best defenders in the country. We saw it. They both shut down Caitlin Clark, throwing Ziana Walker, who also was very impressive against Caitlin Clark. They are both very elite defenders, the Glenn twins. And to see Jalen take that step forward on her shooting is massive. She was, outside of a late Gisela Sanchez 3, she was the only one to hit a 3 against Texas. She had 2. If Jalen can keep that going, especially in the offseason, that's just another issue for any team wanting to defend K-State. Jalen is crucial to this team, as I think almost everyone in the starting 5 is. I think Jalen next year should be an all-conference player. Actually, we'll talk about it later, but I think K-State could have a full starting 5 of all Big 12 players next year, with some of the best bench players in the conference. There is a lot of upside, especially for next year, with how many players you bring back. Now, the one player that I have been slightly disappointed with ever since conference play started, especially, is Briley. Now, I love Briley. I think Briley is amazing. I've actually met Briley in person. She's an awesome person. She is the louder twin. She's the more outgoing twin. But Briley has kind of she got hurt in the UCF game and kind of hasn't really figured out what she's supposed to do. I don't think it's necessarily a slump. I think she's just trying to get back to the Briley Glenn that we know. But it's hard because when you're on a very good team and you're you're struggling, why your coach is going to go to a very talented bench where they can throw in Ziana Walker, they can bring in Mop in and play bigger. And she's kind of hard on herself, I think, but we've seen the last few games. Well, not the Texas game. She struggled in the Texas game. But the Oklahoma game, the BYU game, she was starting to get it going again. She was scoring more. She was driving the paint. She was getting to the rim. Still an elite defender. God, they are so good. Glenn twins, the best elite. If there are any basketball heads, if you can name me a single twin, men in basketball or women in basketball, that are elite as the Glenn twins on defense, I would love to know, because those two, you try to dribble the ball near them, good luck. They have the quickest hands. Their arms are extremely long. They're very smart. They'll stay in front of you. They're very good with their feet. You can't get around them. It's just insane. And instead of Ayoka, we're going to talk about Gisela. I haven't really talked about Gisela yet because I was going to use her as the 5th starter right now. I was really optimistic. I was actually more pessimistic. I also really do like Gisela. She's a true stretch 4. Shoot from everywhere. She's a very good vision with the ball. She rebounds actually at a really high level. Last few games, she's been really good on the boards. But she's been thrown into the center position, which in the Big 12 is not a fun position to play out of, out of position. But she's taken it head on.
She's not scared of it. She's accepted the challenge. And after those first two games without Lee, which was KU and Baylor, I was kind of questioning her. All her shots, she seemed rushed. She wasn't. She has one of the prettiest just shot strokes in college basketball, but it kind of disappeared. She was like rushed. She was like panicking. And then you saw what Maupin did against Baylor, and you're like, well, crap. We kind of need maybe Maupin should start. But then Gisela kind of went off. She 18 points against both Oklahoma and man, my brain does not want to work. BYU, both career highs. She was shooting the ball at a high level. She was hitting three. She was shooting the three, I think, at close to 500%. 500%, 50%. Sorry, I was thinking 0.500. Gisela is also a sophomore. She started her career at Arizona, which, believe it or not, next year, guess who we're going to play? Arizona. Well, she is an elite player. And what sucks is I think she was hurt last year just like Lee. She was out the whole season. She was part of the team. But she has really, really developed this season. If she can get 15 points off the bench come March Madness with Ayoka, who the heck is beating this team? You're going to get lucky to score 60, and then Ayoka's going to put up 20. You have three elite guards that are going to just bully you while you try to take care of Ayoka. Oh, guess what? Here comes a stretch four off the bench that can score 15 points from anywhere on the floor. She's fast. She can rebound. She's a great passer of the ball. I think Gisela is the key for this team to make a deep, and I mean deep run into March Madness all the way into April. But the good thing about it is when that time comes, if Gisela has an off night, Maupin can come in and play. I think Maupin and Ayoka. Sorry, this is a little off topic. Just change the topic. I think Eliza Maupin at the 4 with Ayoka Lee at the 5. If you can develop Maupin and get her to hit constantly from like 15 yards, 15 feet from the basket, that's scary for any team because now you have a fast 6'4", extremely long, athletic, can lay it in, can drive, can with Maupin. Like that's gonna take two player, or it's gonna take your defender with a help. Oh well, you want to help? Well, okay. Well, here's your 6'6", one of the best centers to play in the country, and Ayoka Lee right here. How are you gonna deal with that? Oh, okay. Oh, guess what? Now they have one of the best all-around point guards in the country out here. Okay, how are you gonna defend her? Oh, you have two Glenn twins that can also shoot and are very effective. Well, that's scary for teams. But back to Sanchez. Sanchez is a player to me that at the end of the day is going to make mistakes. She is a sophomore. She is learning the game. She's learning how to play in this system. But she has stepped up in a major way that not a lot of sophomores would. You get thrown into the starting five to replace one of the best, or I would arguably say the best player to ever play at K-State in Ayoka Lee. And she kind of panicked at first, but she has calmed down and she's established herself. I don't know why against Texas she had such limited minutes because we saw in the fourth quarter. Oops, sorry, I hit my mic. In the fourth quarter against Texas, when she got thrown in, she quickly contributed. She scored a quick three, got a good rebound, played good defense. But with Oklahoma State around the corner, I think Gisela can have another big game. Oklahoma State has okay size, but they're not. They rely a lot on the three, and I think K-State will be able to handle that, especially with the best three-point shooting defense in the conference. I think K-State will handle it. Now let's just kind of jump into questions. So I talk about Gabby mostly. We're going to start with a question from the Gimp. What's your take on Gabby Gregory having an off year scoring? Is it injury? I thought she might bounce back after Ayoka's injury, but she really hasn't. Well, the thing with Gabby is last year she kind of knew what was going to happen. There's no Lee. The guards, young guards, I mean, Serena and the Glenn twins were still sophomores. And when you look at it, she kind of came in knowing she was going to be the player. She stepped in the role. She did a great job. But I mean, she still had off nights last year. I mean, not a lot of people watched last year, and I don't really blame them. But she had off nights too. But this year's been a little weird. It's almost like she's doesn't know her role fully. She doesn't know she needs to be this elite 3-point shooter, or she needs to be this physical power forward that she's undersized for, but she with how hard she plays, she could definitely play that. Um, I think it's just a modge podge of she doesn't really know where she needs to be. And I don't think that's her fault. I don't think that's Mitty's fault. It's hard when you have a team with a bunch of revolving doors because you have so much talent, youth, experience, and you have an All American center. Oh, she's gone. And the thing with Gabby is, and you'll hear me say it, is shoot or shoot. Whether you like it or not, even if she goes 0 for 6 against Texas, going 0 for 3 from 3, she's still going to shoot the ball. It's in the offense. We saw Mitty draw plays for it. Because once Gabby can get a shot in sometimes, she can go for 20 plus. It's just not been there this year because her role, I feel like, has changed so much. She has gone from, oh, I need to play this power forward position and be physical, which is hard in the Big 12, especially for Gabby. She's not that tall. And she's playing against these 6'4", 250 power forwards like Texas. And it's hard for her to do that. And don't get me wrong, Gabby is a tough son of a gun. She broke a molar in the middle of a game earlier in the season, played through it. How many times has she just been slammed to the floor and gets up and continues playing? There could be an underlying injury. I wouldn't doubt that, but I don't think it's anything new for Gabby. I mean, right now she's averaging 8.6 points per game, which is good, but it's also a little concerning when you kind of need her to score. Let's see here. Sorry, I'm looking at her stats on my other screen. Ever since Ayoka went out, she has had one game she went 0 for 8, one game she went 1 for 8, and one game she went 0 for 6. But against Baylor, she was massive. She went 6 for 11, 3 for 6 from 3, and scored 16. And K-State won that game. I think right now for Gabby, especially when we're kind of getting closer to March, it's just get her going. I don't think it's more she needs to fix this, she needs to work more on shooting. It's just let her find her rhythm. If Gabby can find the little stride, that's all she needs. She will be massive. And I guarantee you there will be a game, whether it be in the Big 12 tournament or the NCAA tournament, where Gabby is going to step up and be massive. She can cause matchup issues. She's great on the ball. The great thing is with Ayoka coming back, she does not have to play defense in the post. She has been killed the last 2 games against OU and Texas in the post, which is no fault to her. She's playing way out of position, in my opinion. It's hard for Gabby, I think, is barely 6'1", going up against these big, like, all conference forwards. Like, she could be as physical as she wants, but her size is just limiting. But I truly believe shoot or shoot. Just give her chance. Just give her time. I know we have not a lot of time left, but it just takes one good game for Gabby to kind of go, oh, okay, this is how I do it. Is she'll go for 20 a night. And like I said, she will be massive come conference time or end the season time, whether she's scoring or not. She is a big part of this team. She will start every game this season unless she gets injured. She's a leader. She's tough. She brings a certain vibe to the court. Like, yeah, we're tough. Like, if you want to beat us, you're gonna have to physically deal with it. She's gonna have off nights. She did last year. It just sucks that right now that she's kind of in this little dud. I mean, 0 points against Texas. I will have to go back. If I remember when I do my pregame on OSU, I'll look back. I don't remember Gabby ever scoring 0 points in a game. I mean, she only scored 5 against Oklahoma, 4 against Texas the first time. No, 4 against KU. Sorry, 3 against Texas the first time. But 0 points is unheard of for Gabby. And I don't think that she's just like, oh, whatever. Gabby loves this team. She's a freaking competitor. She knows she's struggling. She is going to work her butt off to get out of this little slump. It's just gonna take just that one click moment, and I guarantee you we'll see it at some point. Something's just gonna click, and oh, there's Gabby. And she's always capable of doing great things. It's just getting that consistency, which she's kind of never had, to be fair. She'll go for 25 one game and go for 4 the next, but it's just getting her confidence up, keep building her up, because she will be massive. Whether it's the next game or 5 games down the road, she will win you a game, which is why Gabby is a crucial part to this team, whether or not she is struggling, which kind of is right now. Question number 2 time goes to Dr. J54. If we watch mostly the men's games, which I imagine a lot of people do, what will we not miss or not understand about how women play the game and how to judge what we are seeing? Well, you got to remember. Well, the first thing I'm going to say is you got to remember. Yes, all these women are amazing athletes. Do not take that away from them. Do not compare them to the men's game. It's just the men's game is a faster tempo. It's more in your face. The women's game, in my opinion, is a lot more methodical, which I don't think is a bad thing. It kind of always has been, because you're not going to just drive past someone and slam dunk at home. You got to know how to leverage your body to get just enough positioning to lay it in. And also size. I think size and athleticism matters a lot more at the women's level. The men's level, you could go to some random high school in the middle of Minnesota and you'll find a athletic 6'2" combo guard. Where at the women level, it's a lot harder to find players, especially centers. I mean, you see what Ayoka Lee does, and it changes the whole team. When you have an elite player like Ayoka Lee, it changes the whole feeling of the game. Where the men's game, it's a lot more. That's why I think at the men's level, you see a lot more. That's why you're starting to see those 16 upsetting the 1 seeds, because there's just not that huge gap in like players' skill and athleticism. Whereas the women's game, there is still a bigger gap, because you see players like Caitlin Clark and Ayoka Lee, and there's many others that are just their elite level of play can just completely take over a game and win it and dominate a game. You don't see that as much of them. You have your elite men's players. Do not get me wrong. There's some very good men's basketball players right now at the college level. But teams aren't going to lose because of that player's just athleticism or ability. Whereas the women's level, when you don't have a player to match, we've seen it many times this season. You don't have a player to match Ayoka Lee. Well, might as well chalk that up as a L, because what are you going to do? You can't just go out and find a 6'6", highly capable center like Ayoka Lee. Also, you gotta, one thing that people kind of forget also as well, there are a lot more missed layups at the women's level, which there are a few factors into that. The first is, like we were talking about before, is they're usually shorter. It's a lot harder for a woman. They don't have as quite muscle mass or capability to just go literally put it on the glass or dunk it. It's farther away. And you also got to remember at the physics. I am also a huge science person, by the way. I study pharmacology. But at a physics level, the ball is smaller. So just slightly more like if you slightly just like the deviation of, if you slightly make the ball smaller when it hits the rim, it's going to bounce more. It's going to be harder for it to just bounce in. A lot more balls are going to bounce out at the women's level, because once that ball hits the rim, it's not it's lighter, so there's going to be more force. there's a lot into it, but it's also harder for them just at an athletic level to compare to men. You got to keep that in mind. I don't get, like I said, do not get me wrong. These women are elite athletes. I could not, even in my prime, compete with a single one of them. Um, but compared to the men's game, the athleticism is the obvious one, and then the ability to match players. It's very hard. That's why you see players like Texas, for example. We saw they just kept rolling in big players, and it's like, well, what the hell do? We don't have that. It's because there's not much of that. Whereas the men's level, there's not as much discrepancy between the elite teams and the bottom teams, and just pure like matching athleticism size. You can go find those players now at the men level. It's easy. Also, you got to remember the game as a whole is just, like I said earlier, methodical. The women's game, I feel like it's a lot more X's and O's. You're not gonna have as many of those players that are just like, oh crap, there's 5 seconds left. Let me just drive and do something magical, like Tyler Perry last night. That layup in overtime was insane. Um, you're not gonna have that at the women's level. So once that shot clock starts rolling, it's okay. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go high post, high post. If the center's not there, we're gonna kick back out to the wing guard. The wing guard's not there, then we're gonna go back point guard set, and then we're gonna screen and roll. And every one of those seconds matters. Tyler Perry, I love it. After I've been critical on Tyler Perry at the men's level recently, that would not fly in women's basketball. His standing around till there's 10 seconds, it would not fly. That does not happen at the women's level because you need every second to find that shot. The men's game, you could have one player just drive, and it's just not common at the women's level. There's a lot more. What's that? If you watch a women's game, watch every second of the players not with the ball in that 30-second shot clock. Everything matters in that 30-second shot clock. You're not going to have that one player that's going to bail you out every time. Now, of course, I mean, every once in a while you're going to see them. Oh, there's 3 seconds left. Oh, I'm just going to shoot this three and it goes in. I mean, that happens at every level. But the game is more methodical at the women's level because every little thing matters, because that is how you can. And on the defensive side too, you can't turn off for a second, because then that 1 second you turn off, that offense is. I mean, one player I really enjoy watching right now for K-State is Maupin. She did it against Texas. Late shot clock, the Texas players kind of stopped, and she was methodical. She's like, okay, Texas players with 4 seconds left are kind of just stopping and waiting to just grab a rebound. So she was killing them by just cutting in the backside and being wide open, because she would play methodically for the full 30-second shot clock. And there are men's teams that run like that, but it's less common at the men's game because there's so many freakish athletes, and it's so quick and it's so in your face. The women's game is a little slower, and I think for just like basic basketball fans, that's why it's a little more boring, because it's like, where's the exciting dunks and the big threes and the physical layups? And the women's game is very much, I think, more enjoyable for people who loved and understand the sport, because you kind of see it's a little slower pace, and you kind of get to see all the little parts of the sport that you maybe don't see in the fast, quick tempo, the men's game. Both are fun in their own special ways, but the women's game, I think, is just a more methodical, watch what happens. It's slower pace. It's not as like in your face, which isn't as exciting as men's, but it's fun, especially for someone like me who I love watching how players work on and off the ball, their defense, their positioning, how they're adjusting to, okay, this player's a little faster than me. How am I? And you can see it more at the women's game, which is what I think makes it special and very enjoyable. Next question, we're going to kind of switch gears here. Comes from DJ Cat 2. When will Lee return, and how effective will she be early? Well, I can tell you for a fact, Lee at 10% is effective. We saw, you got to remember, coming into this season, she didn't start full contact practice till I think like 10 days before the regular season. Um, so she was still getting in shape. She played well early. When she'll return, my guess is, I think I said it earlier, is the home game against UCF on February 17th. Now, we might see her against Iowa State if, let's say, in the early, late fourth, or Audie Crooks, the very impressive freshman center for Iowa State, is killing us. They might go, hey, Ayoka, can you give us 6 minutes and just not let her so we can run away or whatever. And I don't think Mitty will do that. I think Mitty is going to be very cautious. This isn't a player you can just risk another injury. You lose her, then, well, okay. I mean, you still can make a little run, but any chance of anything bigger is gone. But I trust Mitty with knowing what Ayoka wants. And Ayoka is a very, very smart person. She knows her capabilities. She knows what she's capable of. But I also think she's very knowing of, okay, I probably shouldn't risk this. I shouldn't. Even though Mitty has said she is slightly ahead of her recovery process, which is great news. And I do not believe this is a serious injury to worry about re-aggravating it, especially with the surgery. It is a non-weight bearing bone in her foot, in her leg. So I don't necessarily think it's like it's going to slow her down a lot. She's been able to kind of keep doing little cardio workouts and stuff. I don't think it'll slow her down a lot. I think once she's fully back and 100% cleared, it's going to be full force 100% for her. If not, any minutes from Ayoka is going to be massive for this team. But the nice thing is you kind of have a little bit of a little break. You've just played your two hardest games. You're going to be favored in every game from here on out. Your hardest remaining game is probably the at-home game against West Virginia here in a few weeks. But if Ayoka's back, this team should be favored and should be expected to win every game here on out. It's just making sure she comes back and she's ready, and we're not risking anything. But I think bet on the 17th, the UCF, we might see a few minutes against Iowa State. If it's either way massive, getting Ayoka back is gonna be the big moment this season needs right now. But we'll see. I think she'll be pretty quick to go back to 100%, and I'm excited to see her back because who does not love watching Ayoka Lee play basketball? Ooh, I like this next question. This is a player I still talk about, especially with my family. Purple Powered asked, why did Taylor Lauterbach get worse while she was here? It would have been nice to have her high, at least to protect the rim on D while Lee recovers, rather than transfer out. Should we Oh, it's a two-part question. We'll go to the second one here in a sec. So Taylor Lauterbach was part of the K-State team last year. She was actually, I believe, tied or is the all-time tallest player to play at Kansas State. She was 6'7". I liked Lauterbach a lot. I was a big fan of Lauterbach. Her size was, she just could never really, I don't think she got worse while she was at K-State. She just never really grasped the game. She was always just a step behind. She just couldn't quite figure it out. You see that she's playing a few minutes at Virginia now, where she's transferred to. But she really just can't quite, I think, fully get to speed with the game. And it's hard at her size. It's very hard to, that's why Ayoka's special. Her ability to play at that speed with her size is elite. I don't think Lauterbach was ever bad or got worse. It's just, she just never really was able to get to the speed of the game, never really improved. But I think when you look at protecting the rim, Lauterbach never was that, even with her size. She loved to take that 10 to 15 foot jump shot, which she was effective at. She just, the physicality bothered her. She never really kind of was all there. Now, that's not me saying that she would have been massive with Ayoka gone. Yeah, she would have. Her size is just a problem, period. But I still think she would have been bothered by the physicality of the conference, especially teams like Texas, Oklahoma. But her size would have been nice. But I don't ever think it just wasn't there. It never was. She's just, but I mean, she can find that step at Virginia good. I think I really like Taylor. I think she's a good player. She just quite isn't up to speed. She just quite can't find that next gear of sorts. But Lauterbach would have been nice, but I don't think that that's an issue that would have been massive in these games outside of just being tall. But we'll see. I don't think K State necessarily did bad, especially when we look at the Oklahoma game. We out rebounded OU. OU's the top rebounding team in this conference. Um, Texas kind of dominated us though, but in it's hard as a zone to rebound in my opinion. So, but Lauterbach, I wish she would have stayed. I really did like Taylor, but I don't think it would necessarily made a difference just because of her size. She just is just a little slower, but that's my thoughts on Taylor. And now the second part of the question: should we be watching out for any of the women basketball players to enter the transfer portal at K State? I genuinely believe if you want a starting player that would transfer out, and now I'm not saying this is going to happen or it's likely, uh, Briley. And don't get me wrong, I love Briley. I think it's just a little like disheartening for any player to be struggling and see your minutes kind of disappear, especially to younger players. But her bond with her sister, this team loves each other. I, I just don't see it. Going to the bench, players that could transfer. Taryn, no, Ziana, you'd have to go deeper. Um, Jamia Harris could be, I think, a good guard if she wants a starting role on a team. I think if she goes to like a lower conference, I think she could be a pretty good guard. Um, I don't see Parks. Parks is interesting. She's not the greatest basketball player, but she is a big heart and soul player, a lot like Rebecca Dollinger. They don't play, but I mean, they love this team. They're like the heart and soul. They bench managers. They get the hype. Um, and the thing with Parks is keeping her around's massive because her younger sister is one of the best players in the Midwest. I can't think of her first name right now, but that's going to be a big selling point come recruiting because I think she's a junior right now in high school. Using oh, hey, your sister plays here. Why don't you come play for us? Um, I just, I struggle to see any of these players transferring because they're such a tight knit group. Like I said, if you want to start her, Briley, I don't think she will. I don't think she would. But I mean, just looking like at the over, it's disheartening. Like I said, minutes are evaporating to younger players because you're struggling. But I struggle to see it anywhere. Bench Jamia, I like Jamia. It's just I think you could say she's going to be like, well, I'm definitely not playing next year because all the guards are back, and if she wants to play, I think could be a very good guard at a lower conference. Outside of that, I don't. Um, no, I don't really see anyone transferring, at least big time. But we'll see. We'll see. We still got a lot of season left, but we'll see. The next question comes from MNCat 1983. I wonder if the MN stands for Minnesota. Yeah, or they ask, what are the chances Lee returns next year for her COVID year? Now, I Ayoka loves this university. You could ask her. She loves everything about this. She's involved in every athletic program you could think of. She supports every program. You'll see her at football. You'll see her at volleyball. You'll see her at men's basketball. You'll see her. She loves this university. So I don't think that there's any doubt in my mind that she would be like, I'm going to use my COVID year and transfer as a grad student. That I don't think would happen. Even though she could get some massive money, I don't think that's part of Ayoka's plan. She loves this university. Very similar to Aaliyah Carter, in my opinion. Those two are just the staple of women's sports at K-State, and they love it here. The chance of her returning for her COVID year after this injury, I'm going to put it at 50-50. Before the injury, I would have said like 30-70 because if they make a deep run, and it's kind of like when you look at like NFL quarterbacks, like, oh, they won they finally won the Super Bowl, or they're just going to retire. If they made a deep run this year, Dale could be like, hey, that's like a good place to finish it. But I think after that injury, she's going to be like, I want to play full season with this team. And next year will be special with all these young, and then you got the Glenn and Serena being seniors. I would put it at 50-50. Don't expect her to announce it till near graduation would be my guess in May. Because if you ask her, she's going to be like, I'm focused on this year like every player would. But whether or not she returns, the excitement of next year should still be really high. It's just, if Ayoka was to return next year, this team will be, in my opinion, the best team in women's college basketball. You can, even if Caitlin Clark comes back or not, if nothing crazy happens and you just lose pretty much Gabby, I think K-State will be the best team in women's college basketball next year with Ayoka Lee. So if you want any chance of a national championship, don't count out this year. But if you really want a national championship next year, if Ayoka Lee returns, I think K-State will be the favorites. I just, the amount of youth and talent and growth that can just continue to happen, and Ayoka another year, it's just all the pieces are there. It's up to her, and I don't think there should be any pressure on her, and I don't think K-State fans should be upset if she decides to step away, especially with the amount of injuries she's had over her career, or wanting to take a chance at proving at the pro level to be one of the best. But I don't think there's a financial gain that she really cares about. I don't think there'd be much of one if she went pro, and I don't think she cares if, let's say, like LSU comes and is like, hey, here's a boatload of money, leave K-State. It's just not who Ayoka is. And Ayoka is a special player and is honestly one of the greatest athletes of any sport to play at K-State. And if we can get one more year of her, sign me up. It'll also be the biggest news in women's college basketball if she returns. And I really hope she does. But do not be upset if she doesn't. There's a lot of reasons for it, but we'll see. We still have a lot of season left. She's not going to talk about it, but we'll see. All right, time for our last basketball question comes from Alan Keith. Does women's basketball have any noteworthy 2024-2025 commitments yet to keep this momentum going? And the answer to that is yes. Right now, that class has one player because we're not, like I said, you're only really losing Gabby and Heavenly, I think. Right now, the only signing is a stretch four, play the three, in a player out of Elko, New Market, Minnesota, very close to where Ayoka grew up, in Finley Onstad. Finley plays at Lakeville South High School, and she has been a all-conference player there ever since her freshman year. She averaged before it's hard to find stats. They are a small school. Before this season, she averaged 18 points per game in her career. She's a very versatile player, very good size. She actually, earlier this season for her high school, set the points record in a single game with 45 points. Also, she scored 9 threes in that same game for the most in a single game. Elite all-around player, good size. She could fit in almost anywhere. I think she could be a massive player in the future. Great shooter, like I said, score from anywhere, score in the paint, score jump shot, score consistently from the three. Just think of Gisela Sanchez. But a little bit better with the ball and a little bit smaller. She's, I think, has the potential, and I think that's why Mitty does a good job recruiting. He knows he's not going to get the best players every time, but he's very good at finding those players that are like, oh hey, they could be good. They could, like, if I develop them, yeah, they're good. And I think she's going to be very good, and I'm excited to see her come to K State. She's excited to come to K State. She's been a good player ever since she got into high school. Like I said, she scored 18 points per game her first 3 seasons, which is crazy. And then this season, it seems like she's going off too. I mean, she scored 45 points in a game with 9 threes as she's playing the center for this team. But she'll be exciting. I think the reason for the only one signing so far is they might look for a true scorer come transfer time. I think you could go find like an elite scorer and add that. I think that could also be very crucial. So when we get towards that time, we'll look more into the players. But I think Finley is a great player, high ceiling. Maybe, like I said, smaller school, so she's not like playing. But I mean, she does play AAU for a very good traveling team in Minnesota. But I think she has a very high ceiling. Will we see her play next year? Probably, maybe. I'm not going to say no, but high ceiling, a lot of potential. And then you throw her in playing against some of the best players right now in the Big 12 and everything. I think she'll be very good. I'm excited for Finley to join the team next year, and we'll see. We'll see if they add another high school player. I don't think they will. I think they'll lean towards looking in the transfer portal for a more proven scorer. Well, now let's just switch gears completely, actually. We're going to go to volleyball. I know it's not volleyball season, but there were some very exciting moments this last season for volleyball. I'm kind of sad I didn't start doing this until basketball season because I love volleyball. It is probably my favorite sport. I, like I said, grew up playing it. I managed it in high school. I still have very strong bonds with all the players and stuff that I managed through my high school years. I love the sport. It's very personal to me. I love it. It makes me very excited. I'm very excited for next season for volleyball too. But let's just do some questions here to kind of end this thing. We're gonna start with Jace Trek. Volleyball team can't seem to prevent some bad losses from happening. What do they need to prevent those in the future? Now, yes, they had some very bad losses, and that is what kept them out of the tournament, even though they should have been in it. A lot of them were earlier. I think that's more because case you have a new coach who wasn't a head coach, and you're coming off a bad year. The expectations are low. You have a new coach, like I said, and you're kind of just trying to feel everything out. You have a lot of new impact transfers that are trying to figure out where with any new thing, it's gonna take time. It's just how long. I think early on, especially, I think the game that I can point out that I remember them kind of being like, okay, we got to figure something out was the Lipscomb game when they went to Lipscomb and lost in 5 sets. I And at that time, K State was trying to run a 5-2 offense, which, don't get me wrong, works, but I do not like 5-2s. 5-2s is where you rotate two setters. So they were going from Izzy, and then when Izzy was moved into the front row, they'd take her out, put in a hitter, and bring in whatever hitter rotated to the back row and put in Hinkle to set, which some teams do. I personally do not like it. But teams like it because then if your setter's always in the back row, you have 3 attacking options in the front. After that Lipscomb game, I think there was kind of a realization for Mansfield that was like, okay, we can't, this system's just not going to work. We don't quite have the ability to keep rotating in hitters. So that's when it was kind of like, okay, we're going to switch to the 6-1. Izzy's our setter. Izzy's playing all 6 rotations. Izzy is the setter, which kind of got things going, but they still struggled. They struggled on the road immensely in Big 12 play. They had bad losses at Oklahoma, um, and that hurt. That hurt a lot. Just figure road games are always tougher, and I think with a new coach, it's kind of hard to like. How do I prep for a road game? How do I get them prepared? I'm the head coach. Like, this is my job. I'm not the assistant coach. This is kind of there to. I'm the head coach, which I think next year is going to be improved greatly, especially when you look at the roster last year. There were a lot of young players that played, and take out Clinton, or sorry, not Clinton. Take out Carter. Take out Izzy. I mean, we saw a lot of young players. Simone Sims, Nia Clinton's young. Schmidt is a very raw young player for her position. And I think you saw that, especially on road games. But we also saw exactly what this team can do. No, we were the last team to defeat the two-time defending national champions Texas, and we swept them 3-0. And you add in two sweeps of a very good BYU team. You swept Iowa State, who was really good. But then you look at the road, you lost two straight matches at KU. Now, don't get me wrong, KU is a very good volleyball team, but they just couldn't quite figure it out on the road. But I think next season you have more experience. You have another year under head coach. I think I think we won't be as like, okay, what's it gonna look like come non-conference? We know what it's gonna look like at the start of the season. It's gonna be a 6-1. Izzy's gonna be your setter. You're gonna have a Leah Carter. You're gonna have a Nia Clinton. You kind of have a more set of like, okay, this is what we're doing. You don't have to try to figure it out. You know what you're gonna do. So I think out of the gate they'll be really good. It's just I think on the away games, like I said, more experience, not just for the players, but for the coaching staff. I think they'll figure that out, and I think they could be very, very, very good next year. Our next question comes from Call Me T22. What's the plan at libero for 2024? With Mac Morris off to Oregon, that position seems to be a linchpin in how far Mansfield and company can go in the fall. That's a very good question. Mackenzie Morris was there's a reason she is multiple time all conference setter, or so not setter, libero. For anyone that's kind of unfamiliar, libero is the player that's wearing the different color jersey. They're considered defensive specialist. They can sub into the back row at any point. You do actually have a limited amount of subs in every set. Libero doesn't count. So Mackenzie was a very, very special player at K-State. Her ability to it wasn't just her ability to dig the ball, but it was her ability to pass the ball out of those digs. Arguably one of the most consistent players I've ever seen at K-State. She's very effective. She's great with her body control. She's fast. Great server too, actually. And she's also one thing that she's really good at is when you get setter out of position. So let's say Izzy, the setter, Izzy like has to dig the ball and the other team hitting it over. Well, your setter then obviously can't hit it again. Mackenzie was that staple. Okay, setter out. Okay, Mackenzie's going to be the one to set up the pass for the set, and she was great at that. How many times would you see Mackenzie from the baseline, perfect pass to Aaliyah Carter on the other side of the floor? Very, very good player. Now, with her gone, which, to be fair, I'm glad she's taking this chance to take her grad student transfer and go play at Oregon. It sucks that we don't see her play somewhere else after 4 years at K-State. But you want someone who can give you good defensive minutes, and my immediate answer is Simone Sims. Simone Sims was a freshman last year. Didn't see her a lot in the early part of the year, but then she blew up in the scene. She was amazing against Texas in the back row. Good server of the ball too, which Mackenzie was. Mackenzie was a great server. Simone Sims is the heavy favorite unless they go find another transfer player, which I don't think they're looking for anymore. they added the 2 middle blockers and the transfer portal, and I think he's confident in his back row, although younger. I think Simone Sims is going to be your libero next year as a sophomore, and if she could take a very, she could take a, she's not Mackenzie Morris. Do not expect the amazing digs but she's going to give you that consistency of a very good back row defender. And so Simone Sims is my favorite right now to be libero. Don't count out a player like Molly Ramsey either, but Simone Sims, I think, is the heavy favorite. Her ability, she just blew up on the scene in conference play. She played some big rotations against, like I said, Texas and BYU. Simone Sims. That's who I think. And if she can be 80% of the player Mackenzie Morris was, this team will be very, very, very good. But don't, like I said, Molly Ramsey is an experienced player on this team. She barely saw the court last season, but she's a very good defensive player. You're not going to see a player like Grigorski step into that role. Grigorski's still going to be just that versatile. Okay, where do you need me to play player? Also, okay, I'm just stepping away from the libero role. Outside hitters next year. Anaya Clinton, I think, is going to be, if with Aaliyah Carter, it's going to be harder, especially because you got to split like attempts. But K-State has 2 All-American caliber outside hitters, which not many teams ever have if you're not named like Texas or Wisconsin or Nebraska. I think Ania and Aaliyah, well, okay, are both All-American caliber hitters. And adding the 2 middle blockers with how big of a step Brenna Schmidt took last year, especially towards the end of the season, is amazing. The front row will be fun. I think Izzy Shazeski, sorry, she has a weird last name, who is a household favorite over here at the Fitzgerald household. I absolutely love and adore Izzy. She's a spark plug. She does not care that she's 5'6". She will go up there and battle with these tall outside hitters the Big 12 has. Against Texas, man. I there's not many setters, period, that will go up and joust with the arguably best middle blocker in the country. But Izzy not only did it, but she dominated. She's going to be a special player next year. K-State has 3 All-American caliber players: Izzy, Aaliyah, Anaya. And if you can just find some consistency and get great libero play from Simone Sims, the ceiling's really high next year. And Mansfield, I think, is an amazing coach. He's very soft-spoken, but he's an amazing head coach. The girls love him to death. And Izzy, you got to remember, the thing with Izzy was she chose K-State after transferring from Oregon State, which is a big move. Her whole family lives out on the West Coast. Her boyfriend plays baseball, I believe, at Oregon State, where she was. But she chose to come to K-State to help restart this program. And she has been nothing but phenomenal for the program. She's a great player. But K-State has one of arguably the greatest setters to ever play the sport as an assistant coach, which is helping Izzy a lot. So if with that, Izzy's going to take a huge step. This whole team is primed. It's just the big question mark is libero replacing Mackenzie Morris and finding consistency in the back line. I think Simone Sims is the answer. Now, is there going to be growing pains? Yes. That's just inevitable. I mean, she's going to have games where you're like, okay. But she's also going to have games like, wow. I think so. Simone Sims, libero next season. That's my guess for now, unless some transfer portal stuff. We'll see. It'll be exciting. Our next, I just realized, the next question actually comes from my mother, A. Fitz. Give us a rundown of what positions or what rotations will look like next year in women's volleyball. We'll just kind of keep it simple here because I know not everyone has the greatest knowledge of volleyball. But starting rotation, I think you're going to have a back row of Grigorski, Simone Sims, Izzy. And then in the front, your front three starting attackers are going to be Anaya Clinton on the opposite hitting. Outside's going to obviously be Aaliyah Carter. And your middle blocker, I'm leaning towards Meg Brown right now, the transfer from Pepperdine. Don't get me wrong. I think Brenna Schmidt, if she takes another big step this offseason, will push for it. I really don't doubt Brenna Schmidt, but I think Brenna Schmidt will be the second choice middle when Meg has to come out. But they might switch it up. I think they're both great middles. It's just Meg Brown brings more experience in a very good conference out there in the West Coast Conference. Played multiple years at Pepperdine. Was an all-conference player the last 2 years. She's very, very talented, and the potential. It's just the one thing whenever you have a player is just how she gels with the team, switching up conferences. The West Coast Conference is good, don't get me wrong. The Big 12 Conference is definitely a step up. Meg Brown will be the middle. You're going to see, I think, in the back row, you lose a lot from last season in the back row. I think we'll see more Molly Ramsey. I'm curious if they'll try to make LeGrand more of a back row player. LeGrand is a very good setter. She's entering her, I want to say her sophomore season, but I could be wrong. Ava LeGrand was one of the top setting recruiters out of the state of Nebraska a few years ago. She's a very good setter. I think she's also very good. She's very athletic. She's taller than Izzy. She's more athletic. Izzy is crazy. Do not get me wrong. She's athletic, but I wouldn't be shocked if maybe this offseason they work on Ava LeGrand kind of playing more of a defensive back row specialist. She'll probably be the backup setter, but I think the kind of like the opposite of what they did with Hinkle a few years ago. Hinkle hadn't played setter since she was, I think they said, in like her junior year of high school, but we were desperate for a setter, so they moved her from that defensive specialist role into the setter role, and she thrived. But I think they'll kind of I think they'll kind of make LeGrand, hey, you're still the backup setter, but we want you to play because you are just that good at the sport. So why don't we work you on being a DS? And so we might see some Ava LeGrand, Molly Ramsey, if she can kind of step up, will be a good back row. I'm excited to see what Grigorski does this year. She was the grad student transfer from Wisconsin that joined us last season, but she used her COVID year so she could return. She, I think, is very good. And the one thing I like about her is she brings that winning mentality. Like I said, she played at Wisconsin. She won a national championship. She knows how to win. Transfer window wise, I think K-State might be done. I think he's kind of set. Front row players to watch out for that could like break out again. Shaylee Myers is always, I think Shaylee kind of got thrown to the side with the emergence of Anaya Clinton, but I think with the depth at the outside hitter, I think she'll be big. We could see Grigorski play more in the front row. Also look for Schneider. She was pretty impressive in the games that they played her in. She didn't play a lot of sets, but she looked good for a freshman. Rotation wise, you're gonna have two players play all six. Izzy and Carter. Aaliyah and Izzy are gonna play all six rotations. Back row, like I said, you're gonna rotate between Simone's gonna be your libero. Grigorski, I think next year will be a staple. She could go all six rotations, Grigorski, but I think she'll mostly play back row, 3 rotation. And then Molly Ramsey, if she can step up. I would love to see Ava LeGrand, like I said, the setter kind of gets some defensive specialists because I don't think it hurts to turn a setter into a more of a DS because they kind of have to practice being a DS too. Because as a setter, you still have to be able to play defense. So I wouldn't put that past the coaching staff, but we'll see. I'm excited for next year. I think this team has a lot of potential. We'll see though. But that's all the questions, and I have just yip yapped for an hour and 15 minutes. I'm impressed. I thought this would be 30 minutes. Coming up for the women's basketball team, like I said, they're off this midweek, kind of getting a little break after that tough 2-game skid last week, but they will be back on Saturday at 4 p.m. against the Sooners and former Wildcat Emily Ebert. Not the Sooners. I'm sorry if there's any Oklahoma State fans that somehow find this. I'm sorry. That's like when they call us Kansas. It drives me up a wall. We'll welcome in at 4 p.m. Saturday into Bramlage. We will welcome in the Oklahoma State Cowgirls and former Wildcat Emily Ebert in a game that K-State must win, but they also should be heavy favorites even without Ayoka Lee. Oklahoma State has been struggling on the season even after a pretty solid performance against Oklahoma in their last game. Well, they'll play a game this week, but it hasn't happened yet. But I'm excited to get back to Bramlage, get out. They're still a top 10 team, people. I mean, like, I think that place should be sold out. And if come March we're hosting, so one other difference between women's basketball and men's basketball is women's basketball. So top 4 seed in each region hosts the round of 64 and round of 32. So right now, K-State, I highly doubt will not be a top 4 seed. So come March, that place better be sold out. The attendance has been getting better, but I hope people aren't deterred after those 2 losses and realize that there's still plenty to play for. And Ayoka Lee is like right. It's like it's been cloudy the last few weeks, but then here comes the sun. But it's just actually Ayoka Lee returning. I'm excited. This has been fun. I could gush for another hour. I could yip yap about every player, every position, but I'm excited. I'm doing this kind of as a hobby at the moment, but I might add in a little bit of soccer coverage come the fall, on top of volleyball. But it'll be more like once a week. I kind of like, okay, how's the team doing this week? Here's been the best players. Here's what's where volleyball is going to be more every match. It's going to be like coverage, pregame, postgame. I'll try to add in more. I might try to get accredited media so I can go to post game stuff and do more of that for y'all. But it's been fun. I appreciate it so much. Any names, if I continue to do this, would be great. I am so uncreative. But this was fun. I hope y'all enjoy it. I'm sorry if there's some scuff parts. It's like I said, my first try at this. I'm not a big social talker, but I can yip yap about K-State athletics for a long time. And I got plenty more to say, but I don't want to make this a 4-hour podcast. Thank you so much. We might do one. I'll try to fit 1 or 2 more in before the end of the season, and then we'll probably do one right before the Big 12 tournament, one before the NCAA tournament, and one after the NCAA tournament. Get out, support these special ladies. We're very lucky right now at K-State. Football team is amazing. Avery Johnson's going to be amazing for the football program. Tang is my favorite coach ever. I love Coach Tang. What he's doing at that program. Take the fact away that he lost arguably a starting point guard and Tomlin and just beat KU last night for the 2nd year in a row. I'm trying to think. Baseball is right around the corner. I mean, it starts like in a week. 2 All-Americans. You have an All-American shortstop. You have an All-American pitcher. Great support cast. Starting pitching's the only question mark I have for them, but I baseball's soccer is probably the low point of the athletic program, but you do have to remember, even though I think they're about to enter their ninth or 10th year in existence, that's still very young, especially in a Power 5 conference. But as I watched them play last year, you see the potential. There was a lot of minutes given to underclassmen. And you have a staple now in that midfield with Jasmine Brown, who I think is one of the greatest. I don't want to say greatest. She is one of the best, just defensive minded players I have watched at the women level. I'd compare, if any soccer fans are out there, Julie Ertz. I mean, Julie Ertz was a staple for the U.S. women's national team. Hard headed, physical defender, read the game well. But Jasmine Brown, next season, they moved her from center back up into that CDM, central defensive mid role, so she could kind of get forward. They'll be a lot of fun next year. A lot of young talent on that soccer team. They'll take a step, I hope. And then, like my main coverage, women's basketball. Man, I feel bad kind of for my uncle and stuff, Tim, because the men's team's been so up and down, and that's hard to write about because it's very. There's good moments, but then there's bad moments. You got to cover all this drama. And I'm just over here like, oh man, we won again. Cool. Oh wow, Ayoka Lee won Player of the Week in the nation, and it's it's been enjoyable. And then, like I said, volleyball next season will be fun. I'm going to love that. I'm excited to share it with y'all. I hope I can teach a wider audience about the sport. It's the only sport, like I say, you could lose the first set 0-25. Hell, you could lose the first two sets 0-25. But guess what? You can still win the match 25-23 the next two sets, 15-13 in the fifth set, and you still won. You can always bounce back, and every point's exciting. It's fun. I'm excited, and I really appreciate everyone. I'm sorry this is a little longer. I don't blame if you don't listen to it all. I kind of ramble a lot. Next time we'll maybe try camera. I'm just doing audio this time, but we'll see. I'm excited. But thank you very much for listening. If you are not, I am making this just public, so it's not behind the VIP board at GoPowercat or anything. This will just be public out there. But if you want more coverage on K-State women's sports, I highly encourage you to look at subscribing to GoPowercat.com. I'm very active on there. I post pregame, postgame for every game. I also do a few other pieces throughout the season. I mean, yeah, it's a great year for college athletics, especially for K-State. The women's game is growing in every sport, and I love to see it. Massive supporter of this program, the sport, both these sports, I should say. But I'm glad I get to cover it. And if you are someone who's looking for a little bit more on the women's sports sides, I highly encourage you. Don't be afraid to reach out to me. I have a Twitter. It's kind of just a mishmash of my real life and the sports life. I'll try to post it under this podcast if I can figure out how. But thank you so much. We'll do this again soon. It was fun. But most importantly, go Cats.